Hi, I'm Christina, and today I'm looking back at all of the 2023 releases that I've read to see whether they're worth your time. So I've read a total of 9 books that were published in 2023, 3 of which I gave 5 stars, 3 of which I gave 3 stars, and 3 of which I gave 2 stars, so a very, very even split. Now, I do have book review videos for all of these books, so I will link those down below just in case you'd like to hear my more detailed thoughts on any of them. So I'm going to start with the ones I rated 5 stars, the ones that I think are definitely worth reading and are definitely worth your time. 2 of which actually made it to my best books of 2023, so I absolutely loved them. So the first of which is The Mysterious Case of the Alperton Angels by Janice Hallett. This one is a mystery novel and it's presented in a mixed media format. So it has emails, WhatsApp messages, typed transcripts of interviews, excerpts of novels, and I loved the way it was presented. I love mystery novels in mixed media formats. I really find them fun and I find that they're just like solving a little puzzle and I really have a good time when I read them. So in this one, the premise is this. You have a key to a safety deposit box and inside this box contains the archived research material for a book that has just been published, and you have to read it all and then decide, are you going to put it all back in the safety deposit box and throw away the key, or are you going to take it all to the police? So yeah, I thought this was such a fun, entertaining read. I had a great time with it. I was trying to figure it all out, piece it all together, and just work out the mystery and the puzzle, and it was such a fun reading experience. So the second book that I gave 5 stars that also made it to my best books of 2023 is Cursed Bread by Sophie Mackintosh. Now, this one was longlisted for the Women's Prize for Fiction in 2023, which is why I read it, and it is set in a small town in France in the 1950s. Our main character is the baker's wife, and one day a new family move to the town and she becomes obsessed with the woman in this family. Now, this is probably the best representation that I've ever read about obsession. It is so disturbing and it's such an eerie, creepy kind of book. I would call it a very strange book. It's very unusual, very weird. It's definitely unlike anything I've ever read before, and it reads most to me like a fever dream. I had no idea what was going on some of the times. It's very strange, very eerie, very unusual, and I absolutely loved it. So the last book that I rated 5 stars that I definitely think is worth your time is The Last Devil to Die by Richard Osman. This is the 4th book in the Thursday Murder Club series, so I'm not going to say too much as it's part of a series. What I will say is this is my favourite cosy mystery series of all time. It's filled with so much British humour. I find it so witty, so funny. I always have so much fun when I read these books. We follow 4 main characters who are living in a retirement village. I'm really connected to these characters. I just love this series so much and I'm very much looking forward to reading the next one. I would highly recommend this. So out of all of the books that I have read that were published in 2023, those were the ones that I rated 5 stars. Those are the ones that I think are definitely worth your time and are definitely worth reading. Now I'm moving on to the books that I rated 3 stars. So I enjoyed them, they were good. I would refer to them as middle of the road books. So I would say that they are worth your time and they are worth reading if they sound interesting to you. So the first of which is Camp Zero by Michelle Sterling. This is a science fiction dystopian novel. I would refer to it as climate fiction. The year is 2049 and we're following a group of characters as the climate changes significantly. There are extreme weather conditions that they have to deal with and certain areas are just far, far too hot to live in. Now, I enjoyed this one at the time, but I have to say, this book hasn't been particularly memorable for me, so I'm going to leave it there and just move on to the next one. So the next book that I rated 3 stars is Thirsty Animals by Rachelle Atalla. So this one is a science fiction dystopian novel and I would refer to it as climate fiction. This one is set in Scotland and there are water shortages across the globe and people are waiting for day 0, which is the day that the taps run completely dry. Now I enjoyed this one probably a little bit more than Camp Zero, but again, it was a good book, but not hugely memorable for me, but I did have a good time reading it as I was reading it. So the last book that I rated 3 stars is Land of Milk and Honey by C.Pam Zhang. So this is another science fiction dystopian novel that I would refer to as climate fiction. So there's definitely a bit of a pattern here of the books that I've rated 3 stars that were published in 2023. They're all very much this genre of book and explore very similar themes. Now in this one, a smog has spread across the globe, which means there is widespread famine basically everywhere. Now our main character is an unnamed woman. She is a chef and she decides to take a job as a private chef at a research community which is in the very top of a mountain on the French-Italian border. And again, I enjoyed this one. I enjoyed it at the time, but I don't think this one is going to be hugely memorable for me. So out of these 3 books that are all very similar in terms of genre and themes, I would say that my favourite one was probably Land of Milk and Honey, and then I would probably put Thirsty Animals second and probably put Camp Zero at the end. But yeah, 3 similar books in terms of genre and themes, and interesting that at the time I enjoyed them. I had a good time with them. I thought they were good books that I did enjoy, but I'm not sure they're going to be particularly memorable, and they're definitely not new favourites. But like I said, if this is the type of genre or book that you think sounds interesting, I do think these ones are worth reading and are worth your time. But if they're not your general kind of cup of tea or what you're interested in, probably don't bother, to be honest. So now we're moving on to books that I rated 2 stars. So I don't think these books are worth your time. I don't think they're worth reading. If I could go back in time, I would skip them and just choose to read something else instead. So the first of which is The Marriage Act by John Mars. So this is a science fiction dystopian thriller, and it's set in the same world as The One. Now I haven't read that book, but he did say you can read them as standalone novels. So in The One, you submit your DNA to a database so you can find your soulmate. And obviously your soulmate also has to have submitted their DNA to the database so that you can find each other. So this one is set in the same world, but a little bit later. And this one revolves around the idea of smart marriages. So if you're already married, you can upgrade your marriage to a smart marriage. And if you aren't married, you can get married and then get the benefits of being in a smart marriage. And the benefits are literally extra benefits. You also get to pay less tax, and you also get access to a better version of the NHS. And you also get to live in purpose-built new homes where you're in a community of like-minded people. So I thought the concept was really, really good. I thought, yeah, that sounds really interesting. I like that kind of dystopian idea. But the concept was a lot better than the execution. I really didn't like this book. I thought, yeah, the concept is excellent and everything else just kind of fell apart for me. Didn't think the execution was great. Wasn't connected to any of the characters. Didn't really care what happened to any of them, to be honest. So yeah, I don't think that one's worth reading. I just wouldn't bother. So the next book that I rated 2 stars that I don't really think is worth reading is The Drift by C.J. Tudor. Now this one is a science fiction, dystopian, thriller, horror type of novel. And in this one, a virus has spread and we're following 3 different perspectives. So one of which is someone who's living in a boarding school and they are being evacuated because of the virus. Another one is someone on a cable car who's trying to get to this retreat, which should be a safe place. And then the third perspective is someone who's already at the retreat, where they're trying to evacuate the other 2 people. Now, again, I thought the concept was really good, but I thought the execution was pretty poor. Also, there wasn't enough world building for me in terms of the actual virus, the outbreak and the pandemic. I've read quite a lot of books that are kind of post-apocalyptic virus novels, and their world building is excellent. It's just really, really good. Whereas this one, it was lacking. There really wasn't all that much world building, and that's kind of what I went into the book for, that kind of post-apocalyptic stuff. The characters were okay. I wasn't really connected to any of them, wasn't hugely bothered what happened to them, if they lived or died. So yeah, it just didn't really work for me. I didn't really enjoy it. Now, having said that about the John Marrs book and the CJ Tudor book, I have read books from both of them that I really, really enjoyed. So I'm not saying don't read these authors. I'm just saying I don't think these particular books were great and really worth your time. So in terms of John Marrs, the book that I would definitely recommend is What Lies Between Us. I think that's an excellent book. It's very dark, it's very disturbing, very twisted. It's really good. And then in terms of CJ Tudor, there's quite a few that I've really enjoyed. I would highly recommend The Burning Girls. I think that one is my favourite by her. It's really, really good. And there's quite a few other books that I've enjoyed by her, but I would recommend that one. So the last book I read that I rated 2 stars was actually also the very last book that I read in 2023, unfortunately, and that is Study for Obedience by Sarah Bernstein. Now, I read this one because it was shortlisted for the Booker Prize in 2023. I really didn't like it. So essentially we have an unnamed woman who moves to an unnamed northern country, and she's moving because she's going to be essentially a housemaid for her brother. She's going to be unpaid, but she will be living there, you know, free of charge and just kind of providing services to him. I didn't like it at all. I didn't like the writing style. I found it a little bit pretentious, to be honest. I didn't connect with the writing style at all. It's just not my cup of tea in terms of the writing style. I didn't like it. To me, not a lot really happened. I was sitting there and I was very, very bored. It is an incredibly short book and I was so bored. I found it so dull. It was such a disappointment. And for such a short book, I can't believe how long it took me to read it. And to be honest with you, I should have DNF'd this one. Definitely. The only reason I persevered was because it was on the Booker Prize. So I thought it was going to go somewhere. I just assumed that the ending was going to be spectacular. It was going to do something big. So I was sitting there waiting for an ending when I was like, yeah, that made sense. This is a really good book. I really enjoyed it. I was waiting for that kind of, I found it a little bit boring and a little bit dull, but then the ending is something I'm like, yeah, you've made a really good point. I really like that. But no, it just kind of meandered around and didn't really do anything for me. But yeah, should have DNF'd that one. In terms of the other 2-star books, I'm glad I didn't DNF them because I have read from the authors before and previously enjoyed them. So I wanted to finish the books and give them a good shot, but this is the one that I should have DNF'd because it just wasn't for me. It wasn't my cup of tea. So that's it. Those are all of the books that I have read that were published in 2023, and I've let you know whether I think they are worth reading or whether they aren't really worth reading. So I hope this was useful for you to see which newer releases you might want to pick up and which ones you might just skip. So if you have read any of these books, I would love to hear your thoughts on them down in the comments below. And if you have read any books that were published in 2023 that were absolutely amazing, definitely let me know that too, because I would love to read some more newer releases. So yeah, thank you so much for watching. Please do like the video if you've liked it, and please do subscribe if you'd like to hear more of me talking about books. I'll see you in my next one.